Hello and welcome into the live build. We're on part 2, and if you're just joining us, there's part 1 is already posted and available for you to watch at your convenience. And it's this build right here. It's a Sabertooth x99 system, pretty high-end system. In fact, let me move this stuff back here where it was. See, look at it. I thought I was ready to go live, and I wasn't ready yet. So many little details. All right, well, hopefully you guys can hear and see me okay here in the YouTube chat. I've decided, because of the time it takes to film the builds to the level of detail that I do, in order to speed processes up, I'll be doing a couple of builds live just until I get caught up. In fact, I've got a repair coming up live maybe tomorrow. We'll see. And then should be able to finally get started on the Xenos build soon afterward. So for right now, let's get back to where we were. So as you can recall, ran into a stopping point where things are so busy, I assume everything has been shipped in the box. I'm not checking anything. I just start working on it. That's how life gets. The older you get, man, the more stuff piles up. So one of the things I discovered while building is that a CPU cooler, had not been ordered. And the cooler I had recommended, as it turns out, would not have fit. I recommended the NZXT Kraken X52, 5.2, not the 6.2, thinking the 5.2 would fit right up here, but with this motherboard, that ain't gonna happen. In fact, with this motherboard and case combination, that's not gonna happen. So it turned out to be serendipitous that the owner of this computer, for whatever reason, failed to order the cooler, because otherwise we'd be sending it back. So there's one less thing we got to worry about. So I sent him an email and explained to him that I was changing my recommendation on the cooler, and sent him a list of 3 different Noctua coolers. And basically, the more you spend, the better the cooler is when it comes to Noctua coolers. And he went ahead and went with the top of the line. It just arrived in the mail today. This is the Noctua, the DH14, which is a monster of a cooler. You've seen this in the digital audio workstation build, where I covered this in a lot more detail, and you can certainly see my initial reaction to it. Now I know what to expect, but back then I'd never seen one before, and maybe I've seen it on a website or something, but you really don't get that that point of reference for just how large it really is, unless the video is comparing it to something you're familiar with, which none of them were that I had seen. So I was shocked when I saw this cooler. In the box that comes with it, we've got our mounting kit here, and we have something in here. There's another mounting kit. Oh, this is the socket 2011 mounting kit. This is actually probably the mounting kit we need. This simply says Intel set, and this says NM12011. So I really don't know. I'm assuming that model number has to do with the socket type, but it could be for AMD. Ooh, look how fancy that is. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's nice. Everything's got its place. It keeps my OCD really happy. And do we have anything else in here? Yes, there's still a long Phillips screwdriver. That's what that is. And lots of what they call common parts. That's power adapters, thermal compound, some fan screws, and that's all there is for a box of accessories. And then, as we go to the next box inside the box, if I can find a finger hold here to get this out, that's just packing material there. So if you kept track now, this box was shipped in another box, and in that box is a box, and within that box is a box. So I don't need this box. And here we have our monster cooler. This is about as serious as coolers get for the home PC market. And if I can get it out of the box, you'll be even more impressed. If you've never seen one before, here we go. Any minute now. Any second. It's just gonna amaze you. Are you sitting down? I think you almost need 2 hands to open this thing up. Yes. That is the cooler. And it's 2 fans. This is a 140 millimeter fan here that's round. And then there's a 120 millimeter fan here on the end. And you can see they're both facing the same direction. You always want your fans moving air in one direction. Otherwise, you're defeating the purpose of having a fan. In fact, you're making it worse than if you had no fan at all, if you oppose the fans. So this is our heatsink, and I'm assuming that it's going to fit in okay. I think it's going to be fine. Let me just step around and we'll just double check the tolerances here. Should be good though, if memory serves. So we would generally put it in facing this direction. I want to make sure we can clear the memory. Oh yeah, we're going to clear the memory just fine. And then when it's fully seated down, are we going to be able to close the lid? Right now there's a little plastic cover that's on the base to keep the contact area for the heat spreader free of any dirt, oils, anything from fingerprints. So that's adding a little bit of height, not much. So I'm just going to rest it on top of the CPU there, knowing it's going to sit a little further down than that, and it looks like the cover's going to go on just fine. Just fine. I'm not sure how well you're seeing that, but it's going to be great. My only concern is I'm shipping this, I think this is going to Tennessee, and my only concern, if there was anything that was going to break in shipping, it would be the weight of this hanging upside down and being jostled. And if this breaks free inside of this case, it actually probably wouldn't be too bad now that I'm looking at it, because the M.2 is protected with the armor. And then these slots that I don't use will be protected with the armor covers. So the only thing that would really get damaged is the fan, the CPU, the RAM, although that's a $1,000 CPU, and probably this cage. The power supply would probably withstand a beating. I think the optical drive would withstand a beating. But if you've ever seen a computer that has had a major component like this break off in shipping, and you've been on the receiving end of that, one of these days when it happens, I'll film it so you can get a look at the inside. It is, whew, it's like a murder scene. It's horrible. But when I ship this, it'll be shipped, the case goes back into the box, and in that box will lay flat so that this end, right, this is going to be like this is going to be facing down, and it's going to be shipped in a box facing down, and then that box has packing material with this side up, stickers, and the address label will be on the top. So if the shipper were to rotate the box, they won't have any idea where the box is going. They won't be able to see the address label. And that's worked out really well for me as far as shipping computers with the video cards in place. When it comes to these coolers, the digital audio workstation, we started with this cooler, but we ended up taking it off and replacing it. And the owner of those 2 digital audio workstation computers kept these fans. He didn't return them, thinking he might change them out in the future. I don't think he ever did, though. If he did, he never told me. He was very happy with the cooling performance of the fan we ultimately went to. Now, this customer says he has no plans on overclocking, but it doesn't mean he's not interested in it. So he wanted to go with the best cooler he can get. It'll be quieter. Clearly, it could be better overclocked with the more expensive cooler than a cheaper cooler. The lower end Noctuas, the cheaper ones that are a bit lighter, a bit smaller, I think would do the job just fine as well. And I gave him an option of like 3 Noctua coolers. He went for the top of the line, which is fine. It's great. And now we get to install it, because this build has been on pause since the last live broadcast, because I couldn't go any further without a CPU cooling solution. and I had to discuss that with the client. So these things happen. It's just part of the building process. When you build as many as I do and you repair as many as I do, and remember, all the guys that make YouTube videos for a living, or they want to make YouTube videos for a living, they can spend all their day researching parts and reading every little detail. I'm running a repair shop and a build shop. I'm trying to help customers every single day, Monday through Sunday. There's not a day that I'm not open. I'm open every single day. And just trying to help as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. And that means for a lot of equipment, I'm seeing it for the very first time, and I'm just being open and honest by turning the camera on and showing you, hey, look, I don't know everything. I make some mistakes. Everybody does. It's not anything to be ashamed of. Sometimes I misspeak, where I say something I didn't mean to say, where I knew the right answer, but for whatever reason, it's not what came out of my mouth. And then there's other times where I'm looking at hardware like this. I don't see this hardware very often at this level. So I'm not relying on a ton of experience from x99 builds. There's only been a handful of builds. But the good news is, and the takeaway from all of this, I hope that you get from all of this is that you don't have to know all the answers before you start. You simply have to have ambition to want to do it. And as you encounter bridges that you have to cross, then you determine the best way to cross those bridges. You stop, then you research that particular issue, and you resolve it. And that's what you'll see me do over and over and over again. And the reason why I'm even bringing this up is lately there's been a number of comments of people accusing me that I don't know what I'm doing, and it's silly. I've been in business longer than they've been alive, probably. And there's a reality that gets covered up in most media. So that means YouTube videos, television videos, everything's polished and shined to make it look like something is effortless and a person is all-knowing. You don't see what goes on behind the scenes. And I think what I'm trying to do is open up the honesty to show that no man is an island. And unlike a lot of other channels, I work all by myself, so I have to do everything. And that's not for you to, oh, poor Carey's got to do everything. I enjoy doing what I do. But when you have to be a camera expert and a lighting expert and an audio expert and a wireless expert and a networking expert and a computer hardware expert, and you're supposed to know every AMD chip and every Intel chip and every motherboard and every chipset and every SSD and NVMe and hard drive and hybrid and optical, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And over the years, it all just becomes blurred. It all just becomes, it's more or less all the same. And I hope that's really the takeaway from this, is that whether you're building a $10,000 computer or you're building a $1,000 computer or a $500 computer, they all basically go together exactly the same. You could follow a build video I did 5 years ago on a completely different system, and it follows the same process you would have seen on part 1 that I just did the other day of this specific build. So the takeaway from this, again, is that you don't have to be smart. You don't have to know all the answers. You just have to have ambition and handle the parts properly. You don't abuse the parts, and at the same time, you don't have to treat them like glass either. There's a comfortable way which you see me handle the parts. I'm very confident about that because I've done it for so long. A lot of newbies I see starting out, they're a little too cautious. Need to lighten up a little bit there. And anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way because it's a bit disturbing to me that people want to be lied to. When you show people the honest reality, that the conclusion is you're not that smart, or maybe they knew the answer I didn't know at the time, so therefore they're smarter than me. It's not I don't care. You probably are all smarter than me. I never claimed to be a smart guy. What I am claiming is that this is very easy. Anybody can do it. I've been doing it for 25 years. And if I can do it, you can do it. So how about we get that heatsink installed about now, huh? Now here, trying to think where I want to start. We've got the back plate to start with. And I just think that's the coolest thing. I don't know what you guys saw that. I love the way they packaged that. This cooler was, I want to say it was about $80. Amazon might have it a little bit less. All the parts now are in the video notes below the video in the video description. And you can see how it all adds up. Put all the parts in PC part picker. Tell me what number you get. It's pretty expensive. But you get what you pay for. And this is going to be a great computer. All right, so we've got socket 2011, which is what this is, socket 2011 version 3 or V3. I love the way this cooler mounts. So these are the instructions. It's just pictures. Those are my kind of instructions. That's what I like to see. And let's get started with the bracket. I thought there would be an AMD set. This says Intel. Usually they package with both. But this must be specifically for Intel only, I'm guessing. I believe this is all socket 2011 stuff. I'm not sure. I'm thinking on a 2011 you don't use a rear bracket. Yeah, we don't use a rear bracket on a 2011. So this kit right here, you see this bracket? I believe because we already have this bracket here that we don't need this, because normally what you're doing is you're creating mounting points for your cooler to go on, and here we've already got them. They're part of the socket, those mounting points, and we just utilize what already exists. So let's take a look here and see where we start. Looks like we're going to start with these two sides. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. Oftentimes, getting the parts out of the box is harder than building the computer, or is the hardest part of building the computer. So here is, okay, it's not coming out. There we go. There's one side, there's the other side, and then there's a little bag of screws and thumb screws as well underneath. All right, so let's get that out of the way. So what I'm looking at when I go to install this is there's a screw that sticks up right here. And we're going to want that screw facing up. And it's going to mount on these points. You'll see there's holes here that eventually we're going to connect everything to. And so what you got to think about is, okay, if the CPU cooler is going to go on this direction, then where are my screws? So the screws are going to be at the top and the bottom to mount it like this. That means, to translate that, that means if I were to put these on here, that's not going to suit the purpose that we need to go here or here. We need to go up here. We have to go up to the top. And to do that, we're going to need the standoffs that are included in here, which we've got right here. And there's a number of holes that you can pick that are only one set is going to line up with your particular type of 2011 socket. And I'm not sure which one it is yet, but we'll figure it out. These are the kind of things I'm talking about where you don't have to have all of these answers before you get started. I mean, if you've got the time, God bless you, do it. If you're trying to help a ton of people, then I would say the best answer is going to be to do just that, to help as many people as you possibly can, as quickly as you can. And it's just really, I'm trying to think of a best way to explain this. When you go to McDonald's, you're not exactly getting the best amount of attention paid to your food. They're trying to feed as many people as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible. And that's kind of the way I run my business. It's sort of like McDonald's. I try and get people in and out very quickly with a product that meets their expectation. Of course, these products are a lot more expensive, but the idea is that that the customer's expectations are met. And that's the toughest part, and it's the secret to running any successful business. It doesn't matter what you do. As a business owner, you set your customers' expectations, and then you meet or beat those expectations that you set. And if you fail to do that, that's when you have an upset customer. And if you have enough upset customers, you're just not going to have a business anymore. So for people that are critical, particularly the trolls on my videos, basically they don't have all the information and they didn't ask. And had they asked and showed a little consideration, they'd realize that their conclusion was completely wrong. And that's why there's a saying that says, don't let anybody who's never done anything tell you how to do anything, because they don't know what they're talking about. So it's kind of interesting when you corner the troll like that, they'll say, well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I've made a video or not. That's got nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's got everything to do with it. There we go. There's one. And then the other one's going to go right up here like this. And then these are eventually going to lock it down right here. But before we can do that, we've got to secure this into position. And for that, we're just going to use the standoffs. Well, that's not rocket science. I think the last time I built with this cooler was the digital audio workstation. So just got to remember how it all goes back together. That's why you'll see me referencing the directions on this one. This is, when you're dealing with a cooler, it plays a very important role. And when you spend a lot of money on a cooler, it wouldn't do you any good to not install it right and not have it running at 100% of its efficiency. So normally you'll see me just toss the instructions aside because most of this stuff is all pretty much the same. But there's nothing like this Noctua cooler. So when I see these unique parts, then that's where I have to kind of take pause and figure out how to solve those problems. But what I want you to also realize is that if you encounter a problem, it's not the end of the world. It's an opportunity for a learning experience. And nobody knows everything, and if they did, there'd probably be no point in living because their life would become very, very boring. So don't let people get you down about feeling any shame about making a mistake. People make mistakes. You will make them your whole life. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make you less of a person. And just because somebody else criticizes you doesn't mean they're more of a person either. So in the end, we all still die. So that's a bright thing to think about, isn't it? How many people we got watching right now? We got 242 people joining us. Welcome, welcome. If you're watching live, be sure and join us in the chat, in YouTube chat. Everybody's hanging out in there. And just kind of looking through the notes. Let's see. Yarrow says he plans to live forever. Well, good luck with that. Every human being before you, well, not every, but a lot before you have said the same thing. And Carey, I'm glad to have the opportunity to tell you you're my favorite tech and YouTube content creator. Awesome, that's cool. We still doing Tech Vets? When Mike and I have the time, we do Tech Vets. Tech Vets is not pod faded. It's still happening when our schedules allow. So welcome again to everybody in the chat. We're almost up to 250. We're at 249 people watching live right now. So thank you for watching. I know you're watching from all over the world. That's awesome. And It's great when you have folks who support what you do. I certainly appreciate that. Now, the next step is going to be to get this cooler mounted, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to give you a very good camera angle on that because I'm going to have to lay this case down in order for me to access it, and I don't have a camera operator. I've had numerous people tell me they were going to operate my camera for me, and nobody has followed through. So, I'm sorry, but if I sit around and I wait for somebody to follow through, then you guys don't get any content that much longer. You have to wait. So, and the customer has to wait, which is the most important thing. And this customer's waited long enough. So, let's get this heatsink on there. We're going to start with, we're going to need some thermal compound. Usually these bags they don't require scissors, I guess is what I'm saying. You can just, they're resealable. So here we've got a 3-pin to, I don't know what that is. It's a 3-pin connector. We've got some fan shock mounts, fan screws, more power connectors. We've got a metal, this thing's hefty, Noctua Go Faster sticker. And then we've got our thermal compound right there. Now, you don't use this whole thing, folks. You only use a little bit of it. There's probably enough in here to do 10 CPU coolers. So you want to keep the extras, extra everything, because you might need one of these things in the future. Now, with regards to installing this, I'm just trying to take a look at the design here on the bottom. Remember, we want it on so the fans are blowing towards the back of the case. Remember, all your air comes into the front and goes out to the back. And it can also come in from the bottom and go out from the top. So air in from the front and bottom, air out back and front. That's your, when you're thinking about which direction should my fans be in, that would be the proper orientation. In order to get to these screws, I'm going to have to take these fans out. That seems pretty clear. So that'll actually make this a little bit lighter and easier to handle. I'm just kind of paying attention to where the fans are located. When you put the fans back in, this one sits just above the heatsink, and this one sits quite a bit above. It kind of overlaps the bottom about the same. You don't have to be precise. That's just my OCD. Things like that don't matter to most people. But I figure there's got to be a reason why the manufacturer did it that way, and even if I don't understand the reason why, I can at least put it back the way it was, and I don't have to understand the reason why. All right, so there's the 140 millimeter fan. No, that's the 120, and then this is the 140. And if you see what I'm doing here, I'm just pulling on this bracket, and it moves away from the fins on the radiator. And when I take it out, I'm paying attention to which direction I want this to go. And ultimately, again, it doesn't matter if we put it in one way or the other, as long as we put the fans back on in the right direction. My OCD, I like to put it right back the way it came apart. It's not necessary for you to do that. So let's see here. So we're going to be blowing air out. Come on. That's not good. Ugh. One of the brackets got hung up on the radiator fin there, and it was difficult trying to figure out which one was doing that. But it's just a fan. It's going to be fine. No worries. You can, you know, I've seen people where I talk about try to avoid touching the components for any electrostatic discharge, and inevitably somebody will say, "Oops, I accidentally touched it. Did I ruin it?" You probably didn't ruin it, but there's no way to know until you get done and plug it in and turn it on for the first time. So, all right. Now I can access those screws, and let's see. Just want to double check my work. That would go on that way, yes. That looks right to me. Do I even need this other bracket? I don't think I need these. Well, these are called fastening brackets, and the larger brackets are just called mounting bars. It's always good to have what the manufacturer calls the parts, because there's no real industry standard for a lot of these terms. Well, this is interesting. I see. This already has the brackets on it right here. And it wants me to switch those brackets out for these brackets, although I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to do it. So now we can go ahead and take this protective cover off. Again, we want to keep this area clean of any fingerprints. We want to make sure that when we apply the thermal material, that's going to work as efficiently and as effectively as it can, by having the surface of the heat shield, the heat spreader on top of the CPU, and the heat spreader on the bottom of the heatsink to be clean and level, straight, flush, and that's going to give you your best cooling performance. So let's see, let's take this side out first. Here's one. I'm a little puzzled by this, because they even gave us screws for these as though these weren't included. I'm pretty sure I can use the same screws. They look the same. Yeah, they're tightening down. So there doesn't seem to be any difference in the screws there. Very strange. I don't recall having to do this on the other one, but maybe I did and I don't remember. Or maybe they've changed the design over the years since I last did that. They almost look exactly identical. I'm not sure. Maybe the thread size is different on the stand-up. Not on the stand-up, but on right here. There's a... Sorry, it's hard to talk to you guys and focus on this at the same time. All right, there's that. Let's see, it's got to go in that way. Here we go. All right. Now I'm going to get ready to get my thermal compound on there. Make sure that's good. Locked down, that's good. Spare parts, go over there. That's garbage. Put that there. Let me get some tape. I'm going to use the tape for spreading the thermal compound. For those of you who've seen my other videos before, have seen me do this before, and it's a little trick I do. There's really, I don't want to say there's no wrong way to put thermal compound on, but there's a lot more than just one or two ways, and anybody who criticizes that lacks respect and consideration. One of the greatest things about building your own computer is you get to build it the way you want to build it. not the way somebody on the internet tells you to build it. So despite my video here is not intended for you to follow like a robot, it's intended for you to understand why I'm doing the things I'm doing, for you then to make the decision that's right for you on how you want to do it. And for me, what I do is I put a dab of this thermal compound on there. And basically what I'm doing is I'm painting, I'm going to leave the cap off, I'm painting the top of the CPU. I want a fine coat of this thermal compound as if it were paint. I don't want to be able to see the top of the CPU, and I don't want paint on anything else. I only want this paint on the heat spreader on top of the CPU. And it's got to be thick enough that I cannot see the CPU below it. So I start with a little bit, I spread it out, and then I can determine if I need a little bit more or not. And I'll just put a little dab on there, put a little dab there. And I will continue to spread that out so I have complete 100% even coverage across the entire surface of the top of the CPU. And that's going to give us our best thermal cooling. Some people like to use placing a drop and letting the CPU crush it out, flatten it out that way. I don't do it that way because then I don't know how much thermal compound I've used. I can't see any bare spots because the heat sink's covering it up. So I just don't have any. It requires a certain amount of faith, and my scientific mind has a hard time understanding faith. I need to see it. I need to know for a fact. And that's why I do it the way I do it. And if you want to do it any other way, it's your computer. You're the one responsible for it. Do it however you want. Because I'm responsible for these computers, I do them the way I do them and the way I've been doing them for over 20 years. Because time has proven that that process works. And the other process may work for other people. And why am I talking about it for so long? Because it is a big deal to some people without a life on the internet who are the thermal compound police and think that they're saving you from misinformation. And I don't want you to be tricked or fooled by those people. I want you to think for yourself. Come to the conclusion that's right for you. All right, I'm just trying to get the heatsink secured down now using the little Phillips screwdriver that they've included with this kit. This is a little difficult because you have to, the screws are on springs and you have to push the springs down, and you want to tighten both screws equally. You don't want one side of your heatsink to be tightened down and the other side to be loose. Like I say, you want that coverage to be equal and even pressure across the entire surface of your CPU. But I think I need a better screwdriver than that. I mean, it's nice that they give that to you and all, but that's not going to work for me either. I have a solution. I have my 6-inch bit. There we go. Solve that problem. It's not working. I don't know if I started that one too much. Well, this is just one screw that is being a little bit stubborn, and I think I'm going to go a little lazier with this and let my tool do the work if it'll reach. There, finally bit, which is good. That's what I wanted. And you guys can probably see a little better now anyway, and I think we both can at this point. So I'm just going to start turning both screws equally, like I said, even pressure across the entire surface of the CPU. And then once that's locked down, once the screw doesn't turn anymore, so it kind of bottoms out, then I'm going to give it just a little bit more of a turn. I'll do the same thing on the other side. I want that to be locked in. If I over tighten that, that can cause stress. So even though it doesn't break for me, it could break while it's being jostled in shipping. So for me, the tightening of those screws is critical. Too loose, it'll fall off. Too tight, the tops of the screws will break off. So you want it right sort of in the middle. Then we can put the fans back on, looking back at the 140 millimeter fan. Trying to decide, say we want it to go this way. The 140 was in the middle. We want, once again, you'll see the rear case fan here. In fact, you know what? You can't see it. Let me pick this up. You can take a look at what that looks like with the fans out of it. So the rear case fan here is, you'll see the way it's pointing, once again, looking at the support brackets. Those support brackets are facing you. No, I'm sorry. Support brackets are away from you when you look at this case here. That tells us what direction the air is moving in. So we want to keep all the fans facing, blowing air this way, right? Because that's the way this fan in the back is blowing air out. And it's critical. I emphasize that a couple of times in this video because of how important that is. People are so fixated on where the wiring goes, you know, the technical stuff, that the non-technical kind of basic stuff, they don't give it any thought. We just put the fan on. Well, no, you don't just put the fan on. You got to put the fan on in the right direction. And you also have to consider your cable management when you do that as well. So it's a little bit more complicated, but again, very, very simple to do. Just requires you think it through and understand why you're doing it a certain way. And with that understanding, then, once again, you can make the decision that's right for you and your hardware. Now, I'm thinking about where's this fan going to plug in? And it looks like, oh boy, we got some fan headers down here. We got a couple fan headers here. Oh, okay, right up here at the top. So that means we can go ahead and have this cable come out this way. Let me think about this for a minute. I may not have a choice based on what I'm seeing here. Can't, yeah, I'm not going to have a choice. It's got to go on this way. Unless, let me think about this for a minute. Put it in this way. That's not going to look good, is it? Wait a minute. Oh, that's better. Okay, that makes more sense. So I'm going to slide this back in. And once again, just pull that. I want to take it's not quite seated properly here. That's better. There's one. And I can't really read what these are, but I'm just going to get this out of the way for right now, and I'm going to plug it in to this top fan header right up here in the corner, which is really hard for me to see and get to, so I know you guys can't really see it. There we go. I'll tie that up. And then we've got the 120 millimeter fan. We should be able to mount that the same way. How did I do that? I went around this way, didn't I? Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to make sure I've got clearance for my RAM, which means not up against the RAM. You want it just a little a ways so that there can be some vibration and movement without hitting the top of the RAM. And not just for shipping purposes, but for purposes of everyday operation, because these are fans and they are going to vibrate. And then let's just plug this one on right over here. If I can get my hands in there. Definitely a job for someone with small hands at this point. My goodness. But if I'd have put a radiator in here, it would have blocked those entirely. Well, ideally, I put those in the right place. We'll find out soon enough. All right, that's pretty easy. I mean, that's a lot easier to install than the Evo 212, that's for sure. Although, again, I'm a little confused as to why they gave us these screws to go with these brackets when it already had brackets and screws. I don't know. Oh, you know what? I can put all the other spare parts in here while I'm at it. Spare parts, spare parts, spare parts, spare parts, spare parts. There we go. Oh, spare parts. There we go. Okay. Let's get that out of here. Whew. It's not getting any cooler in Arizona, I'll tell you that. We're probably going to be breaking heat records in a couple days here. Just looking through your comments here, just checking in with you guys. I have 291 people watching live right now, so if you're just joining us, welcome in. The show from the beginning will be available a couple hours after it's done airing. YouTube takes some time to process it. In fact, I've left the keyboard, this keyboard and mouse you see off to the side, that's for me to deal with the computer that's broadcasting right now. So at this point, that's what it looks like. All you see is heatsink. And now we can get the graphics card installed. And for this, we've got a GeForce GTX superclocked 1080. I think this video card was around $520, something like that. Not cheap, not the most expensive, but a fantastic performer. It's made by EVGA. I like to use products from EVGA because they have America-based support, American-based. So when you have to call them, if you should have to call them, you won't have somebody on the other end of the phone that's difficult to understand. And they also don't make excuses for their products or try and blame you for the fault, which is what a lot of the Asian manufacturers tend to do. Not all of them. It's easy to say Asian manufacturers because they're all basically Asian manufacturers. It's the American support from EVGA that, you know, if you're shopping solely based on price, you got to ask yourself how much is hassle-free support from somebody you can easily understand worth to you? Is it worth paying an extra $10 or an extra $15? Because these cards are only about $10 or $15 more than the cheapest cards you can buy of the same equivalent speed and memory. To me, yes, it's worth the $10 or $15. You know, I'll spend more than that on lunch. So if you want a card that you expect to be working for the next 6 to 10 years, don't buy the cheapest one. That's the advice I recommend. I'm not suggesting you buy the most expensive one either, because that will depreciate very quickly. But what I am suggesting is that you pick a reputable reseller, or manufacturer rather, so that in the rare circumstance that you have a problem, you know you're going to be taken care of. And that's really the difference between a cheap card and an expensive card. They may perform alike right up until the point where you're having a problem. And then that's where you start to realize where your quote-unquote savings went. You spent less and you got less. All right, another poster. I wouldn't mind if EVGA stopped wasting trees by printing posters that nobody asked for. That wouldn't bother me one bit. Another metal case badge. This one's from EVGA. We should put these on a scale and see if EVGA's case badge weighs more than Noctua's. I think Noctua's weighs twice the amount of weight. And you know, if it's heavier, it's built better. Driver disc, instruction manual, power adapters. I don't think you should ever use these power adapters. If you don't have the right connectors on your power supply, I recommend change out your power supply. Why would you put in a $500 or $600 video card and then try and reuse your power supply that clearly was not meant for the task if it requires this adapter? So why not spend $100, $80? Get yourself a modern power supply. It's energy efficient. Won't need any adapters. You're going to have cleaner cable management. And, you know, do it right. So we've got some plastic that has to come off here. And once again, I see a lot of people fail to remove the plastic, which can cause problems. Not all of it has to be removed, but if you don't remove all of it, you're just making what's underneath of it shiny and clean for the person you sell it to years from now when you go to upgrade. So you're going to let somebody else enjoy your stuff more than you ever did. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this plastic off of here. Wow, there's a piece of plastic under that piece of plastic. That's interesting. Well, we'll start with the first one. There's the first one. And then we've got plastic on these here. This is what I'm talking about. If you didn't remove this, your card's going to work just fine. It's just going to start to look terrible as the plastic starts to bubble and degrade over. It'll change color. It'll turn like a yellowish color. Is what age does to it, and dust. And if you peel it off, it just looks so much better, and it'll stay. You see how that side looks compared to this side? Oh, well, you can see that. But if aesthetics are important to you and you like the way it, you take pride in how it looks, then take a few minutes and pull all the plastic off. On the other hand, if you're being considerate of the person you're going to sell it to in a couple of years and you want to do them a favor by leaving it on, well, that's your choice too. I like to take it all off. Yeah, you can quote me on that. And this is the other thing I was talking about here. There's like a piece of plastic that's over the piece. There was already a piece of plastic on top of this. I'm going to peel that off. Much better. And then we've got a piece of plastic over the back plate. And it actually says in red writing to remove this. But basically, anytime you see a piece of plastic typically it's on a heat sink, or, it's usually pretty obvious. Sometimes these centers have a piece of plastic over them. I take them off if I see them. This one doesn't seem to have that. So let me come around and we can get this installed. Walk through my minefield of boxes here. So I'm going to guess I'm going to have to take out the second and third brackets, PCI Express brackets here. There's number one. And there's number two. And now for our graphics card, you'll notice the way I'm holding it. I always hold by the edges, or anywhere where I'm not physically touching the electronic circuitry or the solder points. There's a little cover here that can come off. It has to come off. That exposes the plug that's going to go into the socket right here. So I always want to line that up before installation. Make sure that I've got the right back plates removed, and I do. Make sure that the heatsink's not going to interfere, and it's very close, but it's designed that way. It's fitting in exactly like it's supposed to. Also, I want to make sure that the retention bracket here on the end of the PCI Express slot is in the open position. A lot of people skip that step. by default, they're usually closed. And you have to push on it and open it up. And now I can line it up one more time, make sure my fan cable's running the way I want it to run so it doesn't get pinched. This fan cable right here that's going to this rear case fan. If you can notice now, it's running into this little groove in the video card. Let me take it out one more time. I'm going to show you. Every graphics card, every card you install in your computer has a little cutout right here. And the reason that cutout is there is so you can run cables. So you don't end up pinching cables. That's why it's designed that way. So once again, just trying to teach you guys why, so you can make the right decisions for your build and your hardware and not just be a mindless robot doing what I do. There we go. And now we're going to secure the card in place. There's the first thumb screw. And there's the next one. And so there's our card installed. I want to make sure that all the ports are going to be easily accessible. Sometimes these cards can go in on such an angle that when you go to plug your monitor into it, you might find that it's either a difficult fit or it won't even go in. And so you've got to, best to check that while you're installing it. No differently than the motherboard, you're checking to make sure that all of your I/O ports are accessible, that they're lined up through the holes correctly, nothing's blocking them, they're not, you know, sitting sideways. So everything here looks good. And now we need to hook power up. And then I can do the first test boot, which is pretty exciting. And you guys, because this is live, you know it's a real first test boot. So there's no faking that. I can't hide it. If it doesn't work, I can't go through video editing and correct it, make it look like, you know, oh, here's my first boot. You know, some of these YouTube guys will do that after they've already tried it and have already fixed it. And admittedly, I was doing that at first. And what I learned was you guys really appreciate seeing the mistakes. And after I thought about it, it makes sense. Me being a viewer, I like to see honesty. That's what I'm drawn to. I'm not drawn to the flash and the polish of a high-end production that just doesn't feel real to me. And because we're talking about using your hard-earned money and encouraging you to do this yourself, I want you to be fully prepared to have the right expectations. And you know, if things do go a little unexpectedly sideways, that you don't panic and that you will figure it out. And you'll see me, ideally, run through some things I don't expect, and you'll see how I figure it out. Just like the lack of the heatsink. Obviously, if you're building and you forgot your heatsink or whatever, or the heatsink you ordered doesn't fit, you may be a little disappointed that your computer isn't going to be done on time, and that may bum you out. But it's more important that you do it right than it is that you do it quickly. And then the bad part of doing it quickly is when you're done, you're going to want to do it again. So I say savor it, enjoy it, slow down, pick your parts carefully, do your research, enjoy the entire process. And then when you turn it on and you fire it up for the first time and it works, you're going to have such a feeling of fulfillment. You'll suddenly become part of a club now where you'll say, I know exactly what he's talking about now. All right, let me move this over. Let's clear some space here. And I'm going to need to get my monitor. And we'll fire this bad boy up and see what happens. So let me just put this away for right now. And these can go back in the box. All of this can go back in the box. Go faster stickers. Again, if EVGA stopped putting those in the box, wouldn't bother me one bit. Just saying. Sell them as a separate accessory. Take a couple bucks off the cost of the GPU. Better yet, don't take any money off. Keep it as profit. Give me less things to throw away and ship to my customers for them to throw away. All right. So, keyboard and mouse. Now I have to disconnect my monitor, which I have over here. So I'll be working blind. Hopefully I don't knock any cables loose in this process. Let's get this monitor set up right here where you could see it. And I've got the power cable running all the way over here. Let me change that. Let's unplug the monitor from here. Plug it in over here. And I'm probably getting a really bad light reflection. So let me turn this light off. It's gonna be a little darker for you guys, but at least that way you can see the screen. And let me bring my keyboard and mouse around. I'll set those here. And we can plug in the DVI cable while I'm back here. I'll just take care of that now. And I need my keyboard and mouse dongle from my current machine that I'm using to broadcast. We're going to borrow that and put it right up here. And then I just need a power cable. What do I do with a power cable? I got to go get one. Luckily, I've got about 80 million of these power cables, so finding one is not a big deal. They're everywhere. When you start repairing computers for a living, you'll find there are certain cables you will have an abundance of. And the standards PC power cable will be one of the first ones that you will collect and go, what am I going to do with all these cables? And this one, I'm going to run this one over here. Okay, well, this is it, folks. It's plugged in. Let's flip the switch on the power supply there to on. Let me step around so I can see what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen? It's going to work. So, here we go. Power lights on, hard drive lights blinking, that's good. Fans are turning here on the inside. We just have the 3 fans hooked up right now. I'm waiting for some acknowledgement on the screen. I'm not getting anything yet. Be patient on your very first boot. Give it about 60 to 90 seconds on your first boot. I'm looking at the motherboard for lights. I've got an orange light here. I should have seen something by now. And I've got a red light here, which just came on. And I've got a red light down here. It seems like I'm getting hung up somewhere. It's not turning, it's not posting. Just want to verify. Oh, wait, it is posting. So I got to follow my own advice and be patient. You saw how long that took for that to finally do its power on self-test. What we can see here on the screen is the motherboard is an Asus Sabertooth x99, revision 3701, where it detects an Intel Core i7-6900K at 3.2 gigahertz, which is good because that's what we installed. It sees this card reader, so it's saying generic compact flash. Anyway, it's listing these drives as USB drives, and then it detects the M.2 drive and the optical drive. So that's all good. It says new CPU is installed. Please enter setup to configure your system. So we can just go into setup. There's really nothing you have to do once you're in setup other than save the changes. If you want to go in there and change your monitoring of your fans, Asus has the fan calibration utility, the overclock utility. I'll worry about all that later. But for right now, I'm going to have to step in front. Sorry about this. I just want to go to, let's see. There's our boot priority. That looks good. There's the easy tuning wizard. And then advanced mode, which is F7. That gets us into more of the familiar BIOS. And everything should be pretty much out of the box, ready to rock and roll. Like I'll change the, like if we look at the, I'm in the monitoring section right now, and you can tell it which CPUs you want to monitor. And then there's what they call Q fan tuning, which is fan calibration, which I will run. It shows assistant fan 1 and assistant fan 2, which means I don't actually have the CPU fan plugged in. I see, well, yeah, actually it says CPU fans plugged in. CPU optional is not plugged in. I would prefer to have CPU fan and CPU optional. Doesn't matter which one's which. So one of those headers I'll have to change out. This isn't something that the end user would normally pay attention to anyway. I have chassis fan 4 and assist fan 1. So those are my 3 fans right there. They're going to work the same regardless of where I plug them in. Just a mental note for myself that I want to move those so my OCD can be happy that things are, you know, in the right place. But everything else looks pretty good. Next boot after AC power loss, normal boot. A lot of this you can just look through. If you don't know what it is, you can Google. You know, you have use your phone or something to Google while the screen is open, so you can learn more about what that feature does. But if you're not sure, I suggest just leaving it all alone. I'm going to save changes and reset, and then I'm going to grab a Windows 10 installation disk and start the install of Windows 10. This is Windows 10 Pro 64-bit Creators Edition, which is the only edition you should be using. And got to go back here and find my flash drive, Windows 10. So the download for Windows 10 is actually both Home and Pro, and it depends which product key you use that determines which one you get. So I'm going to go ahead and just plug this into the back right here. I'm just dropping things today. This is why I'm not a surgeon. Okay, that's plugged in. And this is a good opportunity for us to try our reset button. This thing's still booting. There we go. With the flash drive plugged in, it should see that the flash drive is the only bootable device, so we don't have to tell the BIOS to boot to it. It should realize that there is nothing else for it to boot to. And sure enough, it's figured it out. And then once this gets going, I'm not going to enter a product key right now. You can install Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 without any product key. You can use it for 30 days. Actually, I think you can even use it beyond 30 days. It just keeps annoying you that you haven't registered it, or haven't activated it rather. So all I have to do here is hit enter. Enter's not working. So click next, click install now. And I always do a custom install. That's the only thing I change when I'm doing the installs. So here it wants the product key, right? But if you look down here, it says I don't have a product key. That's what you want to click right there. It says you want Windows 10 Home or Pro. I want Pro. I'm going to accept the license agreement and accept that. And then you have upgrade or custom. I always choose custom. And it's going to come up with a list of installed drives. It's going to say which drive do you want to install on. I see a 4 terabyte drive or a 1 terabyte drive. Well, we know that the 1 terabyte drive is the NVMe. It's the fast drive. That's always where you want your operating system to go. So I've selected that and just hit enter. And then we just wait and let it install. There's all there is to installing Windows 10. There's nothing magical you have to do in the BIOS. Once again, you know, you don't have to worry about being intimidated by the software side of things any more than the hardware side. It's all pretty straightforward and pretty simple. You just have to boldly move forward. And if you have a question or you get stuck, you can always go to the Facebook fan page that I have and ask any of the volunteers there for help. You can use Google and find the answer out for yourself. And in most cases, you'll realize when you see the answer just how simple it really was and that it was silly for you to be intimidated by it. One of the things I like to check, I often see LEDs installed backwards and the builders never realize it and the owners never realize it. So I always want to make sure that my hard drive light is turning on and off. I want to make sure my power light is on. Later on, before I deliver the machine, I'll make sure the headphone jack works. I make sure that the USB front works. I'll have to check those and those. Just plug a flash drive into each one, make sure it's detected. I'll grab a memory card and jam it in one of those holes there and see if it comes up. It should. And if it passes all that, it's pretty much good to go once all the cable management is done. I still have the Wi-Fi card to install. I'm not doing that just yet because we are live and I wanted this to be a little more exciting than me installing a Wi-Fi card. We're not going to get on the internet until after Windows has been installed, after drivers have been installed, and after everything's been configured. Then we'll get on the internet. Then we can activate, download all the Windows updates, and I'll just probably hardwire it. And once all of that's done, the very last thing I'll do is utilize one of these existing PCI Express slots down here for the Wi-Fi card. There's no cabling involved in that. So once I get everything done, that can be the very last thing. Then I put the panels on it, and then it gets shipped out to Tennessee to its owner. The other thing I want to take a moment to acknowledge is how quiet this system is. These fans are turning. You can't hear them. Here's my wireless microphone right here. Stick it right under the video card. I mean, it's almost dead silent. In fact, I don't even think those fans, neither of these fans are turning because the video card's not working. It's not working hard, rather. It's not breaking a sweat, so it doesn't need to be cooled down. So we just have the 3 fans running. There's 1 fan here that I've got to hook up, and there's plenty of fan headers on the motherboard to do that. That's not going to add any additional noise, I assure you. It's still going to be as quiet as it is right now. And I think the PSU fan, I think it also turns off as well when it's not being pushed hard. So boom, there's we're going to do our first reboot now after installing Windows 10. And this time it should automatically boot from the M.2 rather than the USB. If it boots again from the USB, then I have to go into the BIOS and change it. But it should automatically default to booting to the M.2 first before booting to USB. Since the M.2 wasn't bootable, that's why it booted to USB the first time. Now that Windows has been primarily installed on the M2 drive, now when the BIOS checks and tries to boot to the M2 drive, it should succeed, which I believe it has, and then continue on with the Windows 10 install, which is exactly what it's doing. And we still keep the USB drive installed until the Windows 10 installation is complete, and that's the same for all version of Windows. Until that desktop comes up, you keep that flash drive plugged in. And we're almost there. It says it's getting ready. While it's doing that, I can go get a drink. Yeah, looks like it's almost at the desktop. It's probably going to ask us a username at some point here. Oh, it's doing another reboot. Okay. All right, so it's automatically guessing our region is United States. Hit enter. Keyboard is US. Hit enter. Do I want to add a second keyboard? Skip just by hitting enter. Oh, well, okay. It's saying you've got Ethernet, but you don't have a cable plugged into it. Anytime you do your first power on, you don't plug in printers. You don't plug in anything you don't necessarily have to have. for a computer to boot up and work, because those become things you have to diagnose if it doesn't work right. So I'm not leaving, I'm not hooking up the Ethernet, so down here it says skip for now. Who's going to use this PC? Let me put the customer's name in. I don't set a password, I let the customer do that, so just hit enter on the blank screen. And if you don't want a password on your computer, it's not a secure password anyway. You want to use Cortana? Sure, why not? I turn all of this stuff off. I'll leave speech recognition on. And there's our install of Windows 10. So you saw that live from first power on to boot up to installation to first boot. So it's just finalizing that process right now. And then I'm going to put the driver disk. Let me go grab that driver disk for the motherboard. That'll be the next thing I want to get installed. And this is why it helps to have all of your parts in one place. I always put all the spare parts in the motherboard box and advise the customers to put that box away somewhere. You shouldn't need it anytime soon, which is why it's easy to misplace it. But if you have all of your spare parts and all of your instruction manuals, all your warranties, all your receipts all in one place, that when you do need it, it's easy to find it and get whatever things done you need to get done without spending 3 days trying to find the manual or the parts you're looking for. I have a driver disk in here. I know it's in here. There it is. There it is. So one of the things I will not install, as I learned from one of the previous builds, is the Aura software from Asus. You have to download the latest version of that. It causes a problem on the Windows 10 Creators Update. I don't believe this board has Aura. I don't think it does. But if it does, I'm going to uncheck that box. I'm just telling you right now. All right, so there's our desktop. Let's get that in there. So a couple of things that I like to do on all my operating systems is I've always liked the My Computer icon or This PC or whatever Microsoft chooses to call it. And on Windows 10, if you just right-click anywhere on the desktop, let me go over here where you can see it. Go to Personalize. Oh, I don't think it's going to let us do it until we activate, now that I thought about it. Go to Themes. And there should be an option to change desktop icons, which is not there. Oh yeah, desktop icon settings. Okay, well, I didn't have to activate it. Click where it says Computer, click OK, close that out, and I'm going to sort this by name. There we go. So now we have this PC. I can right-click on that and go to Properties, or I'm sorry, right-click on that, go to Properties, and then we're going to go to Advanced System Settings. And what Windows likes to do when it gets a blue screen is it will flash the blue screen and restart. And you can't tell anybody what the blue screen said because it flashed and restarted. So what I do is I go to the System Properties under Advanced, and under Startup and Recovery I hit the Settings button, and it says Automatically Restart on Failure. Right here it says System Failure, and I uncheck that box. That way if it does get a blue screen, it'll stay there and you'll have to hit the Reset button. But at least then you'll have time to make a note of whatever it says. I've had to have people point their cell phones with, in the movie mode, in camera mode, so that they can upload a video file so I can freeze frame it in the brief micro fraction of a second that the blue screen is on the screen so I can read it. So I don't know why Microsoft does that by default. I think it should be the other way around, but it is what it is. Now let's go to the driver disk, which should be, right here. And now we're going to go ahead and install those drivers. Driver updates, it used to be constantly there were new Ethernet driver updates, new sound card driver updates, like every couple of weeks. And it could make a significant difference in your performance and your reliability to have those latest drivers. Today, not so much. When a new operating system comes out, like the Windows 10 Creators Update, some things stop working, and it's important to get a driver update, like the Asus Aura software, or your antivirus software, or PC security software. But drivers, using the latest and greatest just isn't, it's not as important as it used to be compared to using what comes on the disk with the motherboard. Unless you're buying a motherboard that's, obsolete, that's a different story. So you see Asus is, sold out with Norton. We talked about this, where they really push the Norton and they're pushing Google Chrome. I don't mind the Google Chrome, but this is really offensive to me. I'm going to click drivers up here in the top left. And there's this Asus install all. And you think, I'm going to get all the drivers, right? But the very first thing listed under drivers is Google Chrome browser and then Norton security. Neither one of those is a driver. So Asus, their marketing department, is really exploiting this idea that you're going to hit this big blue button, and there's no completely uninstalling Norton security. It will stay within your registry, files will stay on your hard drive. You'll have to completely wipe and reinstall your operating system again, which is fine if you haven't activated it, or even if you have really, but it's just less hassle if you wait until the very end to do your activation. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that that I can deselect these items that I don't want to install. And I'm just reading here, it says, by clicking the Asus Install All and installing the following software, you have agreed to the end user license agreement. So I'm not sure. I think if I hit the Install All, it'll bring up options. Let's see. It should come up and verify. Yeah, so it says install drivers and recommended tools automatically, which is by default, or customize the installation of drivers and recommended tools. And there's a third option, install the drivers only. Well, hallelujah. In theory, that should just install drivers. Let's find out. So it's showing advertising up here while it's doing the install. And it's not telling me what it's installing. It just says 0 of 7. And it's suggesting that the estimated time remaining is 34 minutes. It's clearly not going to take 34 minutes. Asus has spent a lot of effort on this advertising and very little in explaining what's happening down here. I would like to know what driver is being installed currently. Instead, it just says 1 of 7. Presumably, I will not have Google Chrome and I will not have the Norton security because I selected drivers only. But with Asus, I wouldn't be surprised that they would sneak that in there. So we're going to find out here as soon as this is done what really happens. And again, if I end up getting Norton security, I'm going to have to reinstall Windows 10 again and start this process over. You can see it doesn't really take that long. It's not a big deal. I just hate to do things twice. Let's see, well that's working. I can put some of this stuff away. This can go in the box, and this tool can go in the box. What else? All of this can go in the box. This big poster is got to go like underneath everything, so everything has to come out of the box. So I can get this in first. Well, that's extra. Don't need that. There we go. this can go in there too. And this can go in there. I mean, when this is all said and done, this motherboard box is pretty full with spare parts, as you can tell there. But like I said, having everything in one place is going to be very beneficial to the owner of the computer in the future. Wi-Fi card. How are we here? We're on step 2 of 7, saying 22 minutes. Yeah, it's clearly not going to take 22 minutes. But while it's doing that, I can pick up some of this mess. Okay, that can go there. Wow, it's taking a while, isn't it? Still on 2 of 7. Although in all fairness, it said it would take 34 minutes. Now it's down to 20 minutes and only less than 6 minutes have actually passed. So you can't really believe that estimated time. If this was loading off USB, it would be a lot faster, but the amount of time it would take to copy it off to USB defeats that purpose, unless you're going to install multiple times. You know, you could just as easily copy the DVD into a folder on the desktop and run it straight from the desktop to speed things up, except for the amount of time it takes to copy to the desktop. So that's the catch you got to watch out for there. But again, if you're going to do multiple installs, that will pay off in the long run to have all the files locally. I can also uninstall or pull out my USB flash drive that has Windows 10 on it. But I want to make sure it's disconnected first. Just go down here to the bottom right corner, and there's the little USB symbol. And I want to eject that flash drive. It says it's safe to remove, and that's good. So now I can go put my flash drive away. Now the customer did order Windows 10 on DVD, and I keep that new in the package for the customer. I will use their product key, but I don't use their disk because it's faster for me to install through USB than to use the disk. And the customer, when you're buying Windows 10, you're really paying for the product key. The software you can download for free, legally, no problem. But to activate it, that's where your $100 or $150 is, that's what you're paying for, that product key. Same holds true with pretty much all software. Where are we at on this? Still on 2 of 7. Is it stuck? Is it waiting for something? No, it's doing it. So one of the things you'll see me watching for is I'm making sure the hard drive light's blinking, that the computer is doing something. That's why that LED is so important. When you're not sure if the computer's not responding, watch for that hard drive LED and see if there's activity. That tells you it's working, it's doing something, and to just be patient. And that's, I tend to not have a lot of patience. It depends what I'm doing, but for the most part, I'm trying to get things done and get people helped and move on to the next person. So somebody like me, I need to just go walk away and go do something else. I don't have to sit there and watch grass grow and watch this happen. I also noticed this has 2 Ethernet ports on the back of it, which is interesting because Windows 10 only showed the 1, but maybe it wouldn't have mattered which one I use because I think they're both Intel based. That's the other thing I like about the higher end Asus boards is they use Intel based Ethernet chips versus Realtek, and the Intel chips just seem to perform better. They seem to have less driver issue, fewer driver updates, which is convenient, and it just overall seems to just be a better Ethernet solution from Intel, and it's been that way for years. I can't say I've ever had an Intel-made Ethernet that I have ever had to replace for compatibility reasons. I have from other manufacturers like Realtek. Some of the Realtek chips are pretty good, some of them are not so good. So it's something else when you buy a cheaper end motherboard, you get cheaper sound chip, you get a cheaper Ethernet chip. And this really is an industry where you get what you pay for. I did mention on the part 1 of this build that there's a little tiny fan that I thought you 3D printed something for that. And no, that little fan goes back on the I/O shield. When I turn the computer around, you'll see there's little holes in the I/O shield. And that's to draw air in and then over, I don't know if it's voltage regulators that are back there, but something that can get hot when you're overclocking. I talked to the customer about it. They don't want the fan. Like I said, they initially don't have any plans to overclock. It's a point of failure that they'll eventually have to deal with because it's a moving part. Fans are one of the most common reasons I get support calls. So I always recommend you only install the number of fans you need. Adding more fans, as I've discussed in the past, oftentimes raises your temperature of your case. Just because you're adding more fans and thinking you're cooling it, you might find you're wrong. And the best way to know if you're wrong is to start disconnecting fans and measure your temps. And if your temps do not change when you've disconnected a fan, then you don't need that fan. If you're not blowing your computer out and getting all the dust out of it at least once a year, you definitely don't want more than a couple of fans, because the more fans you add, the more dust you add. Now there are dust filters, but when the dust filters start getting plugged up, if you're not cleaning them regularly, then you're basically suffocating your computer. And I think in that case, you're better off letting the dust come in. So all too often I run into customers that had no idea they had dust filters or that they were supposed to clean them. And they just want to use the computer, and if it breaks, they call me. So for those folks especially, I install as few fans as possible to try and reduce the amount of dust that they get. Make them aware that there is a dust filter, knowing that they're going to forget that I said. They'll completely forget that conversation. They're so excited to start using their new computer, say, yeah, okay. And then you go, well, what about that filter? Well, you never told me about a filter. So, well, the filters are well and good. The filters are actually worse if you're not aware of them and you're not cleaning them. In that case, take the filters off and don't use them. I'd rather see a machine stuffed with dust than a machine that can't breathe. I mean, what would you rather be? Would you rather be smothered in a bunch of, buried up to your neck in dirt, and you get really, really hot because that dirt is acting as an insulator? You're out there on the beach, let's say, someone's buried you in the beach, but you can breathe, or would you rather not breathe? For me, I'll take the dirt. So anyway, again, explaining the reasons why things are done the way they're done, so you're not just being a robot and following things without understanding why. And your hardware is going to be unique. The system that you build is probably going to be like unlike any other system with regards to the hardware that you select. That's the beauty of a Windows PC. You don't have to be a sheep and have the same thing, exactly the same thing everybody else has, like with Apple. With the PC, you get to express yourself and invest your money in areas that are more important to you, whether that's more important in graphics or more important on memory, or maybe the whole thing's important and you just want the best of everything, you know, which is more or less what this customer has done here. Doesn't need a flamboyant case, doesn't need all the RGB lighting, but he wants a good, solid, reliable, fast computer that won't be going obsolete anytime soon. And the combination of hardware that we've selected for this build is probably not going to match anything you'll find online in any other YouTube video or any other web forum, because there's so many possible variations of hardware combinations. And that's why you shouldn't just follow people blindly. You should understand why things are being done so that you're doing the things that are appropriate for your specific variation of possible hardware combinations that you have selected to make yours. So, how are we doing up there? How's it doing? Where are we at? Installation is complete. Please restart your computer. Great. So obviously it's not going to install our graphics card. There's a different driver for that. We can go online to NVIDIA.com and download the driver right from NVIDIA. Windows 10 does a great job of installing the latest hardware drivers as well. Like I say, the industry has changed quite a bit, in that you don't need to know as much as you used to be able to need to know to build a computer today. A lot of things are just happening automatically now. There it is. There's our desktop. I want to make sure we can see all of our RAM, so I'm going to right-click on the My PC there, go to Properties. Yeah, 32 gigs of RAM is installed, 64-bit OS. There's our Core i7-6900K, 3.2 gig. Everything looks good. Then I can always go to Properties and check the Device Manager to make sure that everything is detected correctly. Make sure we don't have any exclamation points. We do have one right here. It says Unknown Device. And what is it? Not sure what that is just yet, but I want to verify I did not get Norton Internet Security, and I didn't get Chrome. If the customer wants Chrome, they can install it themselves. If they want Norton Security, they can install that themselves. I'm not going to put it on. And in fact, it did not go on, which is good. There are some Asus utilities that can be installed, and I'm not going to do that right now. In fact, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit the power button, and it should cycle off normally if I hit the power button up here. Where is it? Is that it? And then let me go back to the chat, and I'll wrap everything up, take any comments or questions you guys have there in the chat. Looks like it's stopping. Good. Let me go put this back so I can see what I'm missing. Because right now I can't see you guys. But that's about to change here in a minute. Come to find out that I unplugged the camera and you guys haven't been seeing anything. That would suck, wouldn't it? And I need my keyboard and mouse. Let's plug that in. Oh, I left my DVD in there. Oh well, that's all right. I'll get it out later. Let's go ahead and move this aside. Put that over there. Put that right there so I don't forget. Oh, get another case badge. Just what we need. Another case badge right inside of there. What do we have? 364 people are watching. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Let me just jump right through the comments here real quick just to see if there's anything I can address. If you have a question or concern, just notice I made a mistake, let me know, please. Or if you have questions about what you're saying regarding the build, let me know. All the parts are listed in the video description of this video and in part 1. ...2007 Leon Lee case, no dust to remove after 17 months. Well, it's good that you're checking. You know, I'm in Phoenix, and I live in a desert. It's very dusty. So we have a big problem with dust here in the West. So one of the questions, here's a question you guys can help me out with. I'm trying to help a customer with the next build I've got lined up. And they need a good case that's under, well, let's say it can't be taller than 16 inches. And I measured a Corsair 200R. And a Corsair 200R measures 17¼ inches tall. But when I go online and I look at the specs, they say that the case is 19 inches tall. And I'm trying to figure out, somebody's inch is different than mine, because I can plainly see the Corsair 200R is 17¼ inches tall. So when I see the height of the 100R case, it says it's 17 inches tall. Okay, does that mean it's actually 15 inches tall? So I need somebody who's got a 100R case, or someone who has a source for the actual real height of the case with the feet on it. Obviously, we're not going to suffocate the computer by taking the feet off. I've got a tape measure here just to give you an idea. Put the tape measure on the base, and we go straight up on this one, and it's 18¾ inches tall. That means that the Corsair the 200R is an inch shorter, and I think the 100R is another inch shorter, but I'm not sure. This customer does not want the glass panels or a window, so this is going to somebody who is retired. They're a pensioner, and they just want a good, reliable computer. And in fact, they're saying now that they use their iPad so much, they're not even sure why they want a new computer, except that they're old school and they just feel more comfortable with having that at their disposal, even though they probably will use the iPad more. Can you use centimeters? Well, you know, I'm American, so meters is something that when you've grown up your whole life on the standard system and you go to the metric system, the imperial system versus the metric system, you got to learn it when you're young, I got to tell you, because it gets tough to unlearn something and relearn something else. So centimeters, we're looking at about where's my centimeter markings? I guess this doesn't have it. It's giving me fractions of an inch markings. I mean, you can just go to Google and type in inches to centimeters or centimeters to inches. It's not rocket science. It's right at your keys, right at your fingertips. Usually, most American tape measures do show centimeters on the bottom, or they used to. But most Americans don't pay any attention to that unless we're measuring something less than an inch. And even then, we'll usually use fractions of an inch for that. But I did find that they had measured the case, I think the specs were in millimeters, and they had said it was 476 millimeters tall, which came out to like 20 inches or something. It was like, no way, the case is only 17. So I don't know if they're measuring the box the case came in. It was very strange. 18.5 inches is 46.99 centimeters. Thank you, Andrew. Someone else is saying 47.6 centimeters. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Carey, I have the Corsair 100R. It's 16¾ inches tall. Sarah, you're a lifesaver. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So it looks like that case is going to be a little bit too tall. Ideally, I need a case 16 inches or smaller. Now, I could go with a mini ITX. Customer doesn't really want to do that because, you know, it's a little more limited with regards to cooling performance, upgradability, and repair cost. The two parts that are going to be different is obviously the motherboard's got to be a mini ITX board and the power supply has to be a small form factor power supply. Everything else would be the same, but the customer is not. Paul Haywood, my Corsair is 16.25 inch tall. Well, 16.25 might work, maybe. Paul, is that a 100R? Carey, you could go micro ATX. Yes, well, it's going to be a micro ATX motherboard. That's already decided. I really would like to get them into a 200R case because I know it's a good case and they'll be able to upgrade, repair it, and anybody can work on it. But it's going into a little cabinet, and the cabinet, I guess, is 16 inches clearance. And apparently a computer I sold them many, many, many years ago fits in there, but I don't remember it, so I would have to see it again. Do you guys have a recommendation for a good quality, non-windowed case? It's got to have the buttons and everything up in the front, because if the buttons and stuff are up top, they won't be able to access them because it's going in a cubby, right? So that'll be blocked. It's got to have the USB 3. It's got to have two USB 3s up front. It's got to have room for me to put in a memory card reader and an optical drive. And so it's got to have front bays. It's got to be under 16 inches tall. Could be, it's fine if it's a mid-tower or a micro ATX case. Carey, can you share your thoughts and opinions on the new Intel Core i9 processors? Yeah, the new Core i9 and AMD Threadripper CPUs, they're not out yet. Very few of us who buy these things that are enthusiasts really need them when it comes to more cores. So, for example, the customer I'm trying to find this smaller case from, do I sell these folks who are, again, they're retired folks, they're not power users, do I sell them an i3 or an i5? Or do I sell them Ryzen? They don't want Ryzen because it hasn't been out long enough and they don't want to be guinea pigs. So then we go, okay, so do we go i3 or i5? Well, the main difference between the i3 and the i5 is you get twice as many cores with the i5. So with the i5 you can get 4 cores, and with the i3 you get 2. So are you better off getting a 2-core i3 that runs at 4.2 gigahertz, which is your top-of-the-line i3, or do you get them sort of a mid-range i5, which runs at 3.4 gigahertz but has multiple cores? For most users, they're not using more than 2 cores. Not yet, anyway. Unless you're doing video editing or some very specific tasks that are multi-threaded enabled, it's probably a waste of money to get an i9 or a Threadripper for most of us. Those are very specific use CPUs. So you guys are all saying sell them the i5. I disagree. I think selling them the i3 is the better thing. I think that this end user will see a better performance difference from a higher frequency than from more cores. It's like selling them a car. Would you rather have a car that can do 160 miles an hour or one that can only do 100 miles an hour, but you can tow a great big yacht behind you? And that's ultimately what we're talking about here. It's in the car world, it's like torque versus power. And in the computer world, it's cores versus frequency. And it depends on how the computer is being used. And now if you're a gamer, the i5 is a great way to go. If you're just a typical end user, you're browsing the web, you're paying your bills, what you want to experience the speed ultimately is higher frequency. Having 4 cores when you're only going to use 1 and sometimes 2 is throwing your money away. So remember, think about how the other person's going to use the computer, not how you're going to use it. So for me, I think the i3, unless someone's got an argument I'm missing on the i5, feel free to share it. Hey Carey, do LEDs in fans reduce the efficiency because of the lighting? No. No, LEDs, they reduce some of your power efficiency because you're drawing power, but it's a very little amount of power. LEDs don't really create a lot of heat, so you're not adding a lot of heat or drawing more power from the power supply, which would generate more heat. So it's negligible. I mean, if you measured it, yes. You'd be drawing a bit more power, and you'd be creating a little bit more heat, but you'd have to have very special tools to measure that. Nothing a human being could just touch it and go, yeah. That's sort of an argument for nerds to have about semantics. i3 7 Gen is very good. Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. The 7th generation i3 high end is 4.2 gigahertz. Is PC Part Picker a good source to buy parts and build computers? I don't recommend that you buy parts through PC Part Picker because PC Part Picker is scouring the web to find you the cheapest price, which means you may get a case from Amazon, a motherboard from Newegg, power supply from Tiger Direct, video card from B&H Photo, and then all your parts arrive at different times. And maybe you've got everything but the case and you're ready to start. When's it going to show up? Maybe you've got a part you need to send back. Well, every one of those sellers has a different process and policy for returns as well as distance to your home. So it's a lot easier. You make your life so much simpler if you just pick a seller, whether it's Amazon, Newegg, Tiger Direct, whoever it is, and buy everything from them, with the exception being if they're out of stock on something and you have no choice but to source it somewhere else or wait. And that way, all of your parts should arrive together. All of your parts will be on one receipt versus multiple receipts you have to keep track of. Your return policy will be the same. Your shipping cost will ultimately be less. Yes, you can save money by using PC Part Picker and to order from all these different places, but there's a reason why people rate not only the products but the sellers. Some of these sellers you may not want to buy from. So I caution you about where you're sourcing your parts from is very important. Do I think Ryzen has matured? Ryzen has matured. It's come quite a ways since its release. It's still got a little ways to go. I'd give it 12 months. What has it been, 4 months? I wouldn't, if I was going to build a computer for me, I wouldn't hesitate to buy a Ryzen. I'd have no problem with that. But if I was building a computer for a customer, without any experience with the Ryzen chip myself, and without any knowledge of knowing how long to expect reasonably these parts to last, I'm not sure that that's a support role that I want to take on. We have a proven track record with the Intel chips and the Intel chipsets. On the AMD side, your Ryzen chip may work great, and your motherboard may work great. And then 2 weeks out of warranty, your board can go out. And then what? And is that Ryzen's fault? I've seen a lot more repairs with AMDs, and it's not the CPU that causes the problem. It's always the motherboard. Always. Something on the board goes. And I don't know if it's chipset related. I don't know. It could be from the same manufacturer. It could be Gigabyte and Asus. Manufacturers I swear by. And because it's an AMD-based board, something about it is less reliable, or has been in my anecdotal experience, that it keeps me to shy away from them. How do we know if the Ryzen boards are going to last 10 years without waiting 10 years to wait and see? But by then, it'll be obsolete, and that information's no good to anybody. So there's this sort of tightrope walk between being the first and being the pioneer that's got to deal with all the problems, and waiting a reasonable period of time where you feel like, okay, the information out on the net is pretty level when it comes to reliability. And so that's what's hesitating. That's my hesitation at this point right now. It's that chipset and that reliability on the motherboard. The CPU itself, there's probably still going to be some bugs in there. They probably won't affect most of my customers, because they don't do anything that specialized that would be that sensitive to the chip having one little thing that that's corrected, that somebody somewhere will find, like the Pentium 4 flaw, whatever. And of course, Intel's had these growing pains as well. So if I was going to build a Ryzen, I would build it for myself and I would need to use it and rely on it. And then based on that, I would either recommend it or not recommend it. Carey, did you install a DVD drive because the client wanted it or because you wanted to? I don't install anything for my clients. That's what I want. It's always what the client wants. What I do is I give the client things to think about. I go, if you want a DVD drive, here's why you want it. If you don't want a DVD drive, here's how you get around it. The cost is $20. So I'm not making any money off the sale of the parts. And the price I'm charging for my labor doesn't change, regardless of how complex or how simple the computer is. It's a flat rate fee because shipping the computer is pretty much going to cost the same. It's about, generally most computers I ship are between 40 and 50 pounds, and they cost around $120 to $160 to ship, depending on how far it's going, using FedEx Ground, which is the cheapest I have found. And the computers, the boxes and everything are arriving in good shape. So I give my customers information just like I'm giving you guys so that they can make the right decision that's right for them. I'm not the one who's got to live with the computer. I honestly don't care if it has a DVD drive. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. It does matter to me that my customer's going to be happy with the machine. Then I want to get a support call. Guy says, you know, it just occurred to me, I got all this software on CDs to install, and I have no way to install it. And of course, I'll instruct them to go buy a USB external drive. But what I don't want to hear is, well, gosh, if I had known that, I would have just had you put a $20 one in there so I didn't have to deal with it. So again, it's an individual decision that is up to the customer, along with everything else. The hard drives, solid state drives, video cards, cases. That's why these consultations I do with my clients take about 90 minutes, usually. Sometimes they take longer. It's really important for me to make sure my customer knows all the pros and cons of every decision for every part. Here's your benefits, here's your consequences, here's your cost, here's your savings, and we bounce back and forth to find the right configuration that's right for that customer. So when people are offering advice on the internet and they don't have any of this information, that advice is random. It might as well just be somebody flipping a coin, because the only things that they're recommending are what they want. They can't possibly know what you want or what your needs are unless they ask you a ton of questions. And it generally doesn't happen for free on the internet. Sometimes it does, but it's pretty rare. Can you do a Hackintosh? No idea. I have no interest in Apple products. It's just not something I do. So there are certain things hobbyists do, right? A hobbyist is somebody that will build a Hackintosh. It's generally not a business model from which you can run a sustainable business. It's like showing people how to build Linux computers. Generally, the people who are going to do that don't need your help. They're already self-sufficient. They might be interested in watching it. They might want to police it and point out everything you did wrong, or different versions of Linux you should have used instead of the one you selected on your video. But it's a free operating system. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to sustain a business showing people how to do free operating systems. The YouTube and these videos that I make pays me less than it costs me to make the videos. So why do I do it? I do it because I got to do the work anyway. I had to build this computer for the customer anyway. So why not turn the camera on and show you the process? And the little bit of money that YouTube pays, I'm not turning it away, but I'm not making a living out of YouTube videos. And I certainly couldn't do it showing how to make Macintoshes and Linux. That's a very hobbyist thing, and can be a lot of fun for somebody who wants to explore that. But I'm a computer technician. I make my living. My primary source of income is not YouTube, not by far. My primary source of income is by building computers, repairing computers, upgrading computers, fixing networks, fixing computer problems, solving problems customers have in offices, in homes, and that's what keeps me busy about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And on top of the phone calls, how do I do this, or why isn't this working? That's all billable, and that's how I'm able to pay the bills and pay for the camera and pay for the internet so that you guys can watch these videos for free. So when it comes to hobbyist type things like Hackintoshes and Linux, it's nothing I can do and sustain. I have to put off paying work to do that. It doesn't make any sense. Do you ever plan to install a liquid nitrogen cooled system? No. Liquid nitrogen is dangerous to work around. It's very easy to injure yourself. Those systems generally have a very, very short lifespan. If you look at the world records that are being broken on frequencies, those chips don't last very long. And once again, I'm not swimming in money here. I'm a working computer technician, and I'm turning on a camera to show you real work. A customer is not going to pay me to install a liquid nitrogen system. That's something that somebody who's interested in is going to pursue on their own. That's no way you can run a profitable. You got to ask yourself this question. Can you run will somebody pay you to do that? Will you find somebody who will pay you to build them a Hackintosh? Will you find somebody who will pay you to build them a Linux computer? Will you find somebody who will pay you to build a liquid nitrogen? So yes, you can find those people, but they're very difficult to find. And to run a business, you need regular income coming in constantly. And the older you get, the more important this is, because now you have a house payment, you have a car payment, you have pressure. Those things have to get paid, or those things will be taken away from you. So now there's this debate of, in your mind, do you want to do what's cool and fun, or do you want to do what's fun, maybe it's not cool anymore, and make money, or do you just hate your job and you just work because you have to make the money and you despise it? I'm trying to balance what I enjoy with what I do for a living. But at the same time, I've got to focus where I can make money. And so, one or two or a handful of people that want a Linux system or a Hackintosh or a liquid nitrogen system is not enough to sustain a business. You could do it, but then how are you going to eat tomorrow? So that's where hobbyists in business, that's where the line is drawn, right there. And then you've got to ask yourself how much support you're willing to put behind it. What do you think of Cooler Master? I like Cooler Master. Got no problems with Cooler Master whatsoever. I use their cases. You see I've got the Cosmos 2 build up there. There's another case from Cooler Master I used. I called it the Stormtrooper case that's in there. Bitphoenix is a good case company. Fantex, they're a good case. I've never used a Fantex case, but they look really good. I've heard good things. Case Labs, Thermaltake, the higher end Antex, Lee & Lee. Carey, what is the best antivirus for Windows 10? Well, Windows Defender's fine for antivirus. It's really all you need. Viruses are only about 8% of the threats out there. 92% is malware. And so to protect yourself all the way around, I suggest either MCSoft, which I've done a video about. It's EMSISOFT. That's a good all-around protection. Or if you just want the malware protection to work alongside of Windows Defender, I recommend Malwarebytes. These are both paid products. You can get trial versions for 30 days, I think 30 days free. Malwarebytes might be 15 days, I can't remember. They run $30 or $40 a year. I don't recommend any free antivirus other than Windows Defender. That's it. Once again, the term antivirus is thrown around a lot to refer to basically malware, but there's a difference. Malware is a bigger problem today than viruses. So what you really want is a good anti-malware product. Paul says he likes MCSoft, very happy with it. I very rarely run into anybody who doesn't like MCSoft. But again, you don't need both MCSoft and Malwarebytes. Just one or the other is all you need. We got 328 people currently watching. We're going on 2 hours and 7 minutes. So what happens after a certain amount of time, the live feed gets cut after. I'm not sure where it's at. and in processing. So if I do like 4 hours today, I'll only get like 2 hours, the last 2 hours I did. I will lose the first 2. I don't know why YouTube does that. So because of that, I'm going to have to wrap this up. When is the Xenos build? The Xenos build, every time people ask me that, every time I say I'm going to do it, something happens in my life that keeps me from doing it. And so I'm at a point right now where I don't want to say when, because I feel like I keep jinxing myself every time I do that. And I'm not going to get into all the, I'm not going to give you a bunch of excuses on why it didn't get done, all right? But just rest assured, I'm not sitting on the couch watching TV going, you know, eating a bag of chips going, I really should start that Xenos build. Things have been happening. A family has passed away. Other family is going to need to go into hospice care. You know, my wife and I are at this age now where our parents are in their 70s and they're the ones that are still around and not doing so well. Then we have illnesses ourselves we have to deal with. Anyway, life happens, and I'm not going to sit there and give you all a bunch of excuses. The reality is, it's a priority for me. Why wouldn't it be? That machine is going to become my new video editor. If anybody had any motivation to get it done, be the guy who's going to benefit from it, right? But there have been things where life gets in the way, and it's been very difficult to do, especially when you've got paying customers that are holding their cash up going, take my money and help me. And I'm going to go, no, I can't take your money. I got to do this project over here instead. That's for nobody but me. Ideally, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself, ideally I do a repair tomorrow on another live stream. And I hope next week I can start the Xenos build. However, remember I told you that retired couple that want a basic computer. I'm thinking about putting an i3. I need a case under 16 inches. That might have to take priority. I don't know when they're going to order. They might order next week. They might order next month. I don't know. So right now my mission is to find them a case 16 inches or smaller. By the way, if anybody had a case recommendation, I missed it, please go ahead and type that back now into the chat room while I'm watching here. And I do need to wrap this up because I don't want to lose the beginning of the live feed, you know, when YouTube processes it. What would you say is a good price range for a nice gaming computer? Good for gaming and good for the wallet. You're probably looking between $1,000 and $1,500, depending on how powerful of a video card, how fast of a storage device, how much storage you have, whether or not you do RGB or not. The range, I'd actually say $1,000 to $1,800. $1,800 will get you a really nice rig. $1,000 will get you the very basic. $1,200 will get you kind of in the middle. So, you know, 15, now that I'm saying it out loud, 15 is kind of right in the middle. Corsair 100R. Well, that's what I'm saying, the Corsair 100R, but it sounds like, yeah, take the feed off to get it to 16. But if I take the feed off, the power supply won't be able to breathe. I'll have to flip the power supply around. And remember, it's going into a cabinet where it's not going to have good breathing to begin with. I don't know. Would a Cooler Master N200 work? I don't know. I don't know what an N200 is. Let me look it up. No, because it doesn't have any front bays. Remember, I got to have front bays for the optical drive and a card reader. In the 200, the N200 from Cooler Master. Oh, wait a minute. It does have front bays. That maybe could work. It looks a little wide. I'm not sure how much width we have. That could work. Well, no, it's only got one USB 3. So forget it. That's out. It's got to have two USB 3s. It doesn't make any sense to have one USB 3 port because the connector supplies two. I don't understand why case manufacturers are doing this. Why would you give up one USB 3? It doesn't make any sense. It's not like you can separate it and use it somewhere else. It's either on the front of the case as a pair or it's not there at all. To give you one does not make sense. Who would do that? So no, I appreciate the suggestion, but that's not going to work. get a knife and shave down the plastic. Not on a new computer. We're not doing that. Remember, I'm not building it for a friend. This is a professional sale that I have to support, and it's a reflection on me. I don't want them showing this computer that's been hacked with a knife. Who did that? Oh yeah, CareyHolzman built that. Well, I know to stay away from that guy. My goodness. Cooler Master Elite 130. Corsair Spec 03. The Silverstone TJ08E I've used. It's a very difficult case to work on. Everything goes in upside down. The cable management's a nightmare. And very, very difficult if you ever have to repair it. It's also very wide. It's short but wide. And I believe it's too wide to fit into the cabinet. It certainly has the height, but it's very difficult to work on it. So, yeah, I've got a video showing that Temjin Silverstone case, and it looks great. It's really well built, but man, is it a pain in the butt to work on. You know, something as simple as changing a power supply is a huge endeavor when it's already been cabled and you have to uncable everything and put it. Oh man, I don't even want to think about it. Corsair Air 540. Let's see what that looks like. Again, it can't be that wide, guys. It's got to be a normal width. It can be skinnier. It can't be wider. And it's got to be below 16 inches. It's got to have 2 USB 3s. It's got to have a place for an optical drive and a card reader. So that's it. Those are the only restrictions. It doesn't matter if it's micro ATX or ATX. What was the other one? Cooler Master Elite 130. Let's take a quick look at that. Yeah, so again, we're looking at that's almost like a shuttle case. You know, it's very similar to almost like the BitPhoenix Prodigy. It doesn't have the number of ports I need. It's only got one. Nope. Remember, guys, so if you're thinking of doing this for a living, right, this is what a customer is going to tell you. This is what I need. You guys can't be telling your customers, how about this and how about this? That goes against exactly what the customer just told you. It shows you're not listening. So this is important because anybody can build a computer, anybody can sell a computer, but not everybody can give the customer exactly what that customer needs. You need to really listen to what the customer needs, and then you have to do the research and look it up. You guys are throwing cases out there, and you're not considering the things I've told you. 2 USB 3s, I need a space for DVD, an optical drive, I need a space for a card reader. It can't be wide because it's going into a little cabinet that's part of a desk, and it can't be too tall because it's restricted by that. In a worst case scenario, the customer did say that they would be willing to put the computer up on the desk, but their preference, ideally, is that they get a case that fits in there because that's where the old computer was and that's where they want to keep it. They don't want to have to replace the desk. They don't want to have to rearrange the desk to accommodate the case being on top when they already have a spot reserved for it. So, welcome to my hell. Because it's hard to discuss a lot of the parts until we know what case we're going to use, right? Because if we end up going with a mini ITX case, that's going to change a number of parts. If we go, you know, certain cases have different requirements for things. And so until you get the case out of the way, it's hard to really decide everything else. I do know I want to use a solid state drive. Whether or not it's M.2 depends on the motherboard. What motherboard? Depends on the case. I know I want to use that high-end i3 Gen 7, that's 4.2 gigahertz. And I know the customer wants a DVD drive, a card reader, and the case has to be below 16 inches. These are the kind of challenges you get to face when you go in to do it for a living. Changes it from being fun to actual work where you have to do the research. But it's a fun little challenge. It's a fun little puzzle. I enjoy it. But when you're in a hurry and you're trying to help a lot of people, it gets to be a little stressful. Anyway, look, I got to wrap it up. We're at 2 hours and 17 minutes. I know I'm pushing the limit here of losing part of my live feed. So I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. Tomorrow I should have the repair video up. What repair is it? I'm not going to tell you. You got to wait and tune in and see. It should be around 2 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time when I start broadcasting. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. And thank you again for everybody who's tuned in and participating. Really appreciate keeping me company today. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Until then, bye for now.